story.
Tell me your story.
How did it all start, do you remember?
Oh, now what happened? How did it start?
This is Small Business Origins.
Yeah, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Small Business Origins. I'm your host, as always, John Kelly, aka John the Marketer on Instagram and TikTok. And you're tuned in. It's our nationwide search. We're looking for entrepreneurs that have a story to tell. And joining us virtually in the studio from New York City, I've got David Encarnacion with Daycare Accounting Pro. David, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks so much, John. I appreciate it. I appreciate what you're doing for the entrepreneurs with sharing this platform and trying to get these stories out there. Keep up the good work.
Man, I love it. Every single episode, there is just some really cool stuff that I run across. You know, we were chatting prior to the show about yesterday's episodes were just so heavy with this guy that at 17 had a brain tumor. And luckily it wasn't cancerous, but when he had surgery to get it removed, there was a 1% chance he goes blind. Boom, it happens to him. He goes blind, you know, and then this lady that I had on the show, she gets hit by a car, like car versus pedestrian, injured, in chronic pain, and, finds her way to kind of deal with that stuff and open up her own entrepreneurship into CBD and finding, these alternative ways to cure her pain. And it's like, there's some crazy stories you come across. And then there's just some people, you start talking to them and you just find out like that entrepreneurial spirit is so real, and you don't need a crazy war story prior to opening your business to be able to tell an excellent story. Like, some business owners are just out here on the grind for a reason, trying to do something different than their competitors doing. And I love hearing those stories too. So it's everything in between. And I can't wait to unpack what your story is, because as you know, I don't know much of your story prior to this. So I don't know what we're going to talk about, but I enjoy it. But we have to start out with our icebreaker question. Every single episode, we start out with one. Today's icebreaker is pick your favorite decade and tell us why.
Favorite decade was 1980s. So in the 80s, I was going through high school. We had the hip hop era, love music. It was a time when I was transitioning from high school and into college, where I became a club kid in New York. So if you ever heard of a club kid, it means that we went to every club in New York City. And back then, all the clubs, discotheques, if you want to call them that, they used to choose certain people who gets in. And it got to the point where we were on every list. We just walk into these clubs. We met all these celebrities. We have a bunch of fun. We went to all these different parties. And that period of time is when I really exploited my youth and I have fun. So I can tell you now, I'm 54, I can tell you that I have no regrets, especially during the 80s. I lived that life.
I mean, that's the stuff. They wrote movies about that. That's the kind of stuff you see in New York City TV shows and movies and all that kind of stuff about that life. It's not something I ever lived because I've only been to the big city once, but it's definitely something that I've heard about. And I would have loved to experience something like that. I definitely don't hate the way that I grew up and where I grew up and all that kind of stuff. But New York City was always a bucket list for my wife and I, because we knew we wanted to go experience, because it's so different there than it is anywhere else in the world, even in the city of Houston, So it's like, even though it's a big city versus a big city, it's still a very different type of big city when you go to New York, man. It's mind blowing. And if our listener hasn't been, definitely a trip you have to plan, because there's just everything you want to do there. As a firefighter, for me, it was the World Trade Center Museum. It was visiting the fire stations, and doing a lot of kind of the first responder based stuff. But then everything else that you get to see there is just mind blowing.
Yeah. And even as a New Yorker,
was born in '88.
And even as a New Yorker, there's so much to do here. You can't do it all. So, within a 10-block radius, there are 10 museums, if you like museums. That's a lot of information for you to consume within a period of time. And, there are places, my son, he goes out a lot, and he's always telling me, Dad, have you heard about this place? I'm like, no, because it's constantly evolving, constantly changing. Now there are no more clubs. Now they're called lounges. Now there are more restaurants, because now everybody wants to be a foodie. And it's the decades, like you mentioned, they just seem to change, and you just have to go along with it.
Yeah, I was born in '88, so I didn't get to experience the '80s. I think it is something I probably would have loved. Just the way I was raised, the parents that I had, I've always loved good music, and it's been a range of things I was born to be a DJ, which is why I own a company that does that stuff now, because I DJ'd for a lot of my life and I love all music. So I think 70s and 80s was some of like the biggest music revolutions we've ever had in our lives. But I will say the 90s kind of continued that really nice hip hop transition and change that was occurring. And so there was a lot of really good rap that I was introduced to as a child that came out in the 90s, and I thoroughly enjoyed the 90s. And I think that our country was kind of in a really cool place in that period of time, man. A lot more harmony. You know, it started getting bad and then 9/11 happened, and then it's like our country came together even harder. And I just feel like the 90s and early 2000s were such a period of just unity in America versus the divisiveness we kind of start to get into now. So I know we always want to live in the past, but I just feel like I'd love to go back to those days where things seem so simpler. But
I totally agree.
awesome, man. Well, we are here to talk about David. So where did you come from? How'd you get into entrepreneurship? I always ask, man, what's your origin story?
Okay. I was born in the Dominican Republic. My mother was a interpreter at the American Embassy. And when she passed away, I was imported here into the U.S. to live with my father. I have 5 brothers, 1 sister. 2 of them are cops. 1 is an MMA trainer. The girl, she's an artist. The other one, what does he do? He's a residential manager in a building. So pretty much we were a close-knit family. We grew up in the same household. When I went into high school, that's when everything began to change. I started looking for different avenues, what to do. We had a radio show at a college. We were doing a lot of parties back in the 80s. We were getting involved with a lot of things that were basically programming us to where we are right now, or to where I am right now. When I was in college, I used to drive a cab in the evening, go to school during the day, drive a cab in the evening. The last time, I've always been a self-employed or 1099. The last time I received a W-2, I had to be maybe 18. So back then, when you were in high school, you had to get your working papers. So I got my working papers and I started working at a supermarket, getting $3.35 an hour. That's amazing when I think about that. Then I found another place that was paying more. They were paying $5 an hour, but it was in one of these meat warehouses. But you had to, carry calves, frozen calves, from the truck into the freezer. And, as a 16-year-old, it became overwhelming for me because these things were heavy and I wasn't built for that yet. Then finally I went to college. I got accepted to Ohio University, and my father refused to pay because, once again, my father was a doorman. He drove a cab. He didn't have those type of funds. And I ended up going to City College, local community college. I started as an engineer. I missed 1 math class. And the last thing I remember, we were working with numbers. When I came back, we were working with symbols. So I was totally lost and had to withdraw. And then my GPA fell down to like 2.0 because, once again, the 80s, heavy partying. The dean called me in. David, if we're gonna have to expel you if you don't pick it up. And that was it. And from then on, I hit the books and I finished up with the 3.2 GPA. Made the dean's list. The day of my graduation, I moved into my new place. So technically, if you want to look, I did everything the way I was supposed to as a child. Finished college, next day moved out. And when I moved out, I was working. I had my business. I had a window cleaning business, and I was a bartender at one of these bars in Manhattan. I was doing pretty well. I was getting tired of it after a while. Then I had some friends that went to school with me that became stockbrokers. And you have 22-year-olds, 23-year-olds making 20 grand a month. So if you could do it, I can do it. So I became a stockbroker. And that was the hardest training I've ever had. I worked from 7 to 7, Monday through Friday, And on Thursdays, Tuesdays and Thursdays, I would stay till 9, and on Saturdays, 10 to 2. And my weekly pay was $200 a week. And the reason they do that is they want to sort through, they want the top 1%. And I started with about 100 guys. At the end of the training, there were maybe 5, because some couldn't probably because you have to make $400 a day. So you have to deal with rejection. If you can't deal with rejection, that's not the job for you. So we went through those 400 dials. If you weren't able to make that, you were out. Then you had to pass the Series 7 exam, which is the third hardest in the nation. And they gave us a month to study. So after work, we would go to the library. There's a library called in Baruch College where they were open to midnight. So a group of us that were in the training class would go there, study. I took the exam. First time I failed with a 69. Passing is a 70. I was like, oh my God. I said, all right, it's a done deal, next shot. So I scheduled it for the next month and I passed it and I was in. And then I started working as a stockbroker. Then I started developing a certain niche within the business where I was dealing with institutions because I got a referral from someone. And the first account that I had, institution, was the Lowe's Corporation, and they're worth over 100 billion. And that came through some contacts. Then as I developed, I started working with Spanish-speaking clients, and they were coming in. Their first stop was Miami. So they said, hey, let's go down to Miami. So I looked for a firm down there, and this is how I fell into accounting. I go down there, and they give me a signing bonus. Start doing business. Then 9/11 hit. And this is one advice that I have for anyone that's an investor, a young investor, is to be careful with margin. So margin is when you purchase stock at half the price. Actually, you put up half the money and you borrow the remainder. But what happens when that stock goes the other way? You get these margin calls. So you have no idea how difficult it is to write a check for $200,000 to cover a margin call. And if you don't, they sell all your stock. And during 9/11, I remember we were in our sales meeting, and it was early in the morning. And after we left the meeting, everyone went to their office. So we had TVs all over the place, and we saw the planes crashing into 9/11, into the buildings. And I thought it was a replay, but I was actually seeing was the second plane hitting the towers. It got so bad that I just left home. I said, I'm going home. But the market stopped trading. And when we went back, we had some losses that I have never experienced. So a lot of people, a lot of brokers suffered a lot. Some contemplated suicide because, I lost a fortune. At least a fortune to me. For some people, a couple $100,000 is nothing. But, when you lose, close to $1 million in the stock market, you feel that pain. And you feel like you have to start all over. And I said, this is for me. I was crushed. And that's one of the things I regret because I should have stayed, but I was crushed. Then I said, okay, I started a mortgage company. Started doing mortgages. Everything was going well. Then I started with a partner, a real estate company. Everything was doing well. Then 2008 comes along. The market crushes us again. Like, oh my God. Again? Okay. So then during that period of time, when I left the firm because of the signing bonus, there was some accounting error that happened where I received a 1099. Actually, no, I received a tax bill from the IRS because apparently my accountant screwed things up and they wanted me to pay them $75,000. I was like, what? What's this from? And I tried to explain it to them. Finally, I hired an accountant. And that accountant was shuffling their feet. So I got to the point that I was so frustrated because you get these notices from the IRS and they cause so much anxiety and fear. I said, you know what? Let me speak to them. So I started speaking to them. And I basically got the work done. And I was able to negotiate it down to 16,000. So that was a huge burden off my shoulders. And the owner of the firm, when he became wind of it, said, David, would you like to work here? I said, sure. So I started working as a tax preparer, accountant. I was there for about 10 years. And when it got to the point where everyone in the office, including the owner, were coming to me asking me questions about certain tax strategies, I said to myself, I need to do this on my own. So I went on my own. And we started targeting construction companies. We started targeting construction companies because accountants, they shy away from that because the accounting is very overwhelming. There's a lot of things to track, and the taxes are very difficult to prepare. So if you don't want to do it, I'll do it. So I went after it. And then my daycare business started increasing. All these daycares started coming to us, and we started developing relationships. And I came to realize that that's the industry that's suffering the most. And they're suffering the most for very simple reasons and very simple fixes. But like I tell my clients, and you'll see on TikTok, YouTube, all these TikTokers, they're pushing, opening an LLC. It's easy. You can do it in 5 minutes. It's great. And I'm not hating on them. And I appreciate what they do. I just wish that they would also talk about the tax consequences of opening an LLC. Because if these business owners knew that, they can make a determination as to what's the best fit for them. It's not frightening to me, but it's upsetting when a client is sitting across the table from me and I prepare the tax return and they have this huge tax bill and they ask me why. The reason why is because you created this LLC, but you didn't choose a tax structure. If you want to, an LLC is a disregarded entity, quote unquote, according to the IRS. So if you Google disregarded entity, LLC is going to pop up. IRS doesn't care about that. All they want to know is, how will I tax you? Am I going to tax you as a sole proprietor, S Corp, C Corp, partnership? And if you don't make that election, the IRS automatically defaults to the highest tax. Hence, these LLCs. So when they get here, then we have to make adjustments, and I'm able to fix it and get them on the right path. But I just wish that they could fix that. And part of all of that led me to where I am now. Just constantly hustling, constantly looking for avenues. Last year, we rebranded and we went into the daycare accounting pro servicing. There's a division of our system that services the daycare industry. Because if I were to tell you, I would say about 75% of the daycare owners or childcare owners right now that we've spoken to, 75% have the wrong tax structure. And that's why they're paying so much tax. You know, it's disheartening to know that these childcare providers, they're afraid of income. Today, there was a post where someone posted because I'm in these different chat groups. The person posted that she pays so much tax because she received so much grant money. So during the pandemic, the government was sharing and giving grants to childcare owners. And some didn't know exactly what to do with it. So that money is taxable. And there are some, because they had to pay tax, because they were the wrong tax structure, they were complaining. And, you know, it's all a matter of mindset. Because I want to pay personally, and I posted it. I says, listen, I want to pay $10 million in tax. Because if I'm paying $10 million in tax, I'm producing 100. So paying the tax is not the issue. You have to look at the revenue. If you bring in revenue, that's what you want. We're all in business to bring in revenue. So if the IRS or whoever, the government, is giving you $150,000 in grants, how can you say no to that? And you would be surprised how many childcare owners on that thread regretted getting the money, will not do it again. And I'm just in awe because it's free money. I wish I can get $200,000. Well, I'll pay tax on it. I'm sure you'd agree. If I gave you $100,000 and I told you you're going to pay $20,000 in taxes, would you take it? Everyone would all day. But it's so disheartening that that's happening. And one of our focus is to educate the 856,000 childcare owners in the U.S., where we can show them how they can use bookkeeping payroll and taxes as a tool to increase their business and pay less tax. Everyone, talks about, without naming any names, all these companies and individuals that are paying zero in taxes or very little. Well, guess what? That's what you should be following. Don't hate on them. Find out what they're doing that you could be doing. The IRS gives us a roadmap. They want us. They encourage us to avoid paying tax. So if you have the same ability, just use it. There's so many, from putting your kids on payroll, using 100% bonus depreciation. What's the other one? There's so many. The point is, the strategies are there, and most people in general, they think about tax prep. I need to get my taxes done. No, you need tax planning. You need to find out what you need to do to pay zero tax. But no one is basically talking about that, and I am. So it's more of a tax advisory business that we have, where we share the knowledge. I had a friend yesterday, the guy that I went to his wedding over the weekend, we were discussing before. I told him what I do. He tells me, why are you giving away all that info? He said, you should charge for that. I give it away. Because you know what? They're going to try it themselves. Yep. It's going to become overwhelming. Then they're going to end up calling me because they know what I'm doing. And the information that I give free ebooks. I do webinars, podcasts, and it's all free with the intent of educating the taxpayer. Because the education is critical, and the more knowledge that a taxpayer knows or has, the easier my job is, because then we could talk the lingo, then we could talk about other things. Like I had clients this year talk to me, David, I want to open a trust. I said, wait, before we talk about that, that's a great idea. We first have to master bookkeeping, because if we can't master the basics, there's no way I'm going to talk to you about trust. Because if we can't do this, how are we going to do that? So these type of situations arise, and it's our job to help the childcare industry overcome them.
Yeah, I love that. So are you just kind of, there's so many different ways that you can do this type of service for a company. So I'm curious exactly how you're carrying this out. So if I'm a daycare and I want to start doing business with you, is this a coaching thing? Is it over Zoom or some type of video call? Is it a software you have? What does it look like to be your client?
There's different options. There's the most popular, we have a package where we do your bookkeeping. We provide you the profit and loss and balance sheet every month, along with a video. And the video is critical because it's a form of education. The video will break down the profit and loss. The bookkeeper will do that video and will explain our findings and what our concerns are, so that it doesn't follow through to the next month. We do their taxes, personal and business, and we do their payroll if they choose. So those are 3 services within that package. Then we also have individual services, where if you just want us to do your taxes, we can do that. If you just want us to do the bookkeeping, we can do that as well. If you need tax planning, we can do that as well. So all of our clients we have clients in 36 states. So obviously we can't sit face to face. So what we do is we have a secure portal with a 500 plus bit encryption. Clients are able to upload their documents. We prepare the return. Then we schedule an appointment for a Zoom. On the Zoom, from my understanding, I haven't seen anyone do it yet. We're the only ones that we do a share screen. So I share the screen of the tax return, and I go line by line, explaining what each line is and how it's affecting the return. And then depending on what situation we have, I go back into the W-2 and I make changes. One of my popular changes is, if you were to put $21,000 into your 401k, you would pay less tax. That's huge. That's something everyone should be taking advantage of. So I have clients says, no, I added an extra $100 to be taken out of my pay for taxes. Why you pay more taxes? Pay yourself. Put that money into the 401k, and you don't have to add any more tax. So these type of situations always arise. There was a client that he had $451,000. He was going to pay $60,000 in tax. I told him, listen, put $61,000, because as a business owner, you could put $61,000 into a SEP, SEP IRA, and get a deduction. So put 61,000 into the SEP, and his tax bill went from 60 to 40. Saved $20,000. So I told him, pay yourself. Don't pay the tax. Put the money away and pay yourself. It's a win-win.
Yeah, those are the kind of secrets that I need in my life. So is there like a minimum income that a company needs to be making to consider talking to you? Or is it one of those like, hey, it doesn't matter if you made $1, you may have to pay 20 cents in taxes on it, so come talk to me type thing?
Our clients range anywhere between gross income of 50,000 to several million. So it really doesn't matter. It's just you're at a different stage where you will need different strategies, but we service pretty much anywhere between 50 to several million.
Gotcha. Are you just, niched down into daycares, but you accept everyone as a client that has a business? Or are you really just looking to target daycares right now?
Right now, we target daycares, but we also have physicians, restaurants, construction companies. We have different industries, but our focus is on the childcare industry. But we have clients that come to us where we are able to service them. It doesn't matter. It's just our niche. We're targeting childcare industry, but we service everyone.
Absolutely. So are you just offering the accounting services and the tax preparation and tax, planning services, or are you looking more into like some of that financial advisement as well, where, you're helping with investments and stuff? Because it sounds like there's kind of it's all kind of gray area connected, right? Because like you said, if I can invest into some of these IRAs or 401ks, it's going to help my tax bill. So is it just stuff that's closely tied to taxes, or are you helping with some financial planning as well?
I do help with the financial strategies because I used to be a stockbroker. But since I don't have my license anymore, I can't really sell, we'll use the word sell or advise on certain situations. I have a partnership with a securities firm where if I see a situation where the client needs some help, I will let them know. I'm going to have my friend Mike give you a call. He works at this firm and he's going to discuss the best scenarios for you. In the meantime, I usually tell them exactly what they should be looking for and what could be done. And I also prep Mike, this is what I think you should do. But you're the professional. You may have something else. Because the financial planning, it's like our DNA. It's different for everyone. So we have to find out what the client objectives are and find something that's ideal for them. And every year you have these new products or new bells and whistles, and we're able to find those and offer it to the client. But primarily, Mike will take care of that through our partnership with the securities company.
Gotcha. Do you have a specific software or anything that you prefer clients use for keeping up with their own accounting that you can access and take care of their account?
We pretty much use QuickBooks, and QuickBooks is basically the stable in accounting. There are different softwares, and sometimes they're specific to some industries. Like there's Xero, there's some that are specific for nonprofits, there's some that are catering to construction companies, but QuickBooks is pretty much the general format. And once with the daycares, once we set up the chart of accounts and we have the category set up, it's pretty much the same for every one of them with very little subtle differences. But once we are able to do that and develop that system, then everyone is able to join in. Depending on what the client needs, we'll provide them with the QuickBooks, we'll do the payroll, and we'll do the taxes. And it's all in one, all inclusive.
That's amazing. If you could get a message out to every potential client that you're talking to before they sign with you, that's just going to make them be in a better position already when they come to you, what would that message be? What do you see that people are making the most errors at, if you will?
Everywhere. So we have these corporations. So another thing we have these S corps in which the owners are not taking a payroll, a W-2. So if you have an S corp, you are required by the IRS to take a reasonable wage in the form of a W-2. Now, what's reasonable? There's depends on the industry, depends on the state that you live in, and depends obviously on the economy. And we're able to determine that so that you pay less tax. Now, if you're not doing that, you need to start immediately. The IRS is hiring 87,000 new auditors, and they're going to go after the low hanging fruit. And anyone that is an S corp that's not taking a payroll is a prime target. So if I like to do things from the seat of an auditor, what is the auditor looking for? And that would be one of them. If I was an auditor, I'll just look at everyone that's an S corp and see if they're taking a W-2, and if they're not, I will audit them. And you want to avoid that, because audits not only do become expensive, but there's so much of a stress and a burden on you that you don't want to deal with that. I mean, people have so much anxiety. You know, people that work here in the office, they tell me, David, you know, why do you speak to the clients that way? So because I have to be a therapist. People come here with anxiety and fear, and you have to address that. They're afraid that if they owe and they don't pay, that the government is going to arrest them. I hear that all the time. It may seem silly, but it's the truth. Are they going to arrest you? They're not going to arrest you. When do I have to pay? You have to pay that by this date, but if you don't have it, don't worry about it. Just make a payment arrangement. And you hear the fear. I had a client that he texted me 5 times within 2 minutes of each other. Listen, how much do I owe? How much do I owe? And then he finally put, my anxiety is driving me crazy. And I showed it to one of the staff members here. So this is the reason why we're therapists, because these people are going through anxiety and fear, and we have to address it, put them at ease. They don't understand taxes the way we do. They don't understand that, you know, we get tax notices all the time. Just read them. Okay, we'll address it. But they're so nervous that, you know, they're basically pulling their hair out, and we have to avoid that. So the IRS is not, you know, the monster in the room. It's just a situation that you have that can be fixed. And unfortunately for me, I learned that the hard way. So when I received my bill, I felt the same. And I remembered, okay, this is just something that we can deal with. And I was able to overcome it. And I'm hoping the clients that we service will do the same.
Yeah, it wasn't until I've been an entrepreneur for a while. I've owned a business, but it wasn't until I brought on a partner and really took business ownership serious, because like you said, so many, it's like, well, I'll just put it on my personal taxes. I'm a sole proprietor, whatever. And you float that river for so long and hope to God it doesn't come back to bite you. But, you know, that IRS anxiety is real, man. It's something, even when I was a W-2 employee working for a company, and then they switched me because he wanted to do his taxes incorrectly to protect himself during a slump in payments that were coming in for the company due to Medicare cutbacks and stuff like that. He switched us all to 1099, even though we were driving his ambulances, using his equipment, showing up to his company to clock in, being told when we had to be there, where we had to go, what we had to do. All intents and purposes, we are W-2 employees, but we were being paid 1099 so he could save on the tax burden for the company for having employees. And even though that is the story, and even though I knew I was right when I went to the IRS and filed this, I don't even remember what they called it now, SS8 or something like that, where you're filing that basically the employer gave you the wrong documentation. The IRS came to me and said, well, you still have to pay the tax bill as it's presented currently. And for someone who made like $12,000 but was now listed as a sole proprietor and had to pay $2,000 in taxes, I didn't have it. So I got set up on the payment plan, and then all of a sudden, now 10, 11, 12 years later, I'm still paying penalties and interest and everything else because I never had the money at the time for all those years to be able to just pay this tax bill outright. So they're keeping my tax returns, but then the taxes and penalties double every single year. And then now all of a sudden, you know, your $2,000 bill turned into a $6,000 or $8,000 bill. And then you're making these payments of $2,000 per year, but it's inflating and inflating. And it's like, when you go through a decade of fighting with the IRS for an issue that you were right about, I can understand why people go insane when it comes to the IRS. And it's just, like you said, the biggest lesson I learned there was I'm not a tax professional. There's a reason that people go through years of schooling and then years of experience on the job to learn how our tax system works. There's a reason that the tax codes is a book, you know, that's this big. Like, there's a reason for all of that stuff. And so I would just use my story to encourage listeners that, like, everything we're listening to here today is not a sales pitch. this is real life adulting advice. And that is, I don't care if you're just filing a single W-2 1040 EZ, talk to a tax professional about that form and make sure, because you could be doing this all of your life with this 1040 EZ using something like TurboTax Online and missing out on deductions you still could have taken, because if you would have taken the time to talk to a tax professional, and I'm not talking about H&R Block or, Jackson Hewitt, like, good on those people. They're doing good. They're making money. But I'm talking to someone who's going to open up your life and look at it and say, you know what? You could actually do this, make these decisions. Like you said, plan for it, get more money back. If you're making $25,000 a year or less, then there's no reason you shouldn't be getting money back from the government every single year. If that's not happening, there's something wrong. But even if you're a corporation, just like you said, unless you're super profitable, making millions and millions of dollars a year, then you should be breaking even on your taxes or barely paying anything in. So talk to a tax professional. That's my personal experience, is talk to a tax professional.
And you touched on two things. And I tell all my clients, there are two rules. There's a rule for the people that know and a rule for the people that don't know. If you're paying tax, you're in the group that doesn't know. And those 1099s, that is rampant among the daycare industry. They refuse to pay on a W-2. And those workers' comp penalty audits, the penalties are 15 grand. So if you want to avoid that, because, during a period of 18 months during pandemic, 17,000 childcare businesses closed. You don't want to fall into that trap. So make sure you're paying your employees. And the first question that the IRS is going to ask is, does the person have to be there at a certain time? And the moment you say yes, automatically it's an employee and they have to pay self-employment tax. I'm going to tell you from personal experience. So I'm an S-Corp owner and I try to skate. I roll the dice sometimes, and I roll the dice and I try to skate. I wasn't paying myself a W-2. And one day the IRS, actually in New York, knocked on my door. Hey, David, we need to set up an appointment. We need to see your last 3-year bank statements and your last 3-year profit and loss. And they came in, they went through it together, and any item on that bank account that I couldn't account for or had justification was considered income to me. Can you imagine that? So at the end of the audit, they said, okay, we'll send you a tax bill. Tax bill was 5 figures, and I paid it. But the point is, it happened to me. But I took the chance. I knew what I was doing. But for those people who aren't, and they come across an audit, it's going to build up your anxiety. It's going to put you in a position where you have to lay off to pay some tax. So in order to avoid that, just pay the tax. And you would find that you'll benefit from that. During the pandemic, with the PPP loans, a lot of these daycare owners couldn't qualify because they did not have a payroll. They were paying on a 1099. So because you were paying on a 1099, you didn't qualify for those funds. So you lost out on that. And sometimes people have to understand, if you do things the right way, you will come out winning, because they want you to avoid paying tax. You just have to look at the roadmap and figure out what works for you and use it.
Absolutely. Man, how do we get in touch with you and learn more things from you, and most importantly, do business with you if I'm a daycare owner out there that's looking for someone like you?
They can call our office. The number is 718-515-2532. They can go to our website and schedule an appointment. It's www.daycareaccountingpro.com.
Perfect. Y'all on social media or anything?
Yes, I'm on TikTok, Instagram. I think TikTok is Daycare Accounting Pro. On Facebook is also Daycare Accounting Pro. Yeah, if you go to the website, you'll find all our social media, and you can just follow us. So I constantly do educational videos on what strategies to use so that these childcare owners and business owners can take advantage of this tax code that we have.
Man, you're not doing any of those TikTok trend dances or anything like
Not
that?
yet, but if you want to do a duo, I'm willing.
I'm telling you right now, you don't want to see my dance skills on TikTok. That's for sure.
Yeah.
No, I love it, man. I love whenever companies put out that educational content on social media. It's a question I ask almost every single episode, and I'm always hoping the answer is yes, because we follow the same at Beefy Marketing, the same exact philosophy that you do, and that is we'll tell you how to do every single part of your marketing ventures, everything you need to do, how to do it, everything from follow our social media, and you're going to get that stuff for free. Listen to our podcast that we have, Business Growth Hacks. You can find that anywhere. We're going to give you all those answers for free and talk to other experts in the industry and tell you that stuff too. But at the end of the day, when you open up all of the marketing things you need to do, like keeping up with social media, your website, and rebranding, something you just went through, when you open all those things up, you're going to be like, I don't care if I do know how to do all of it. It's time consuming and I have other things to do, and you're going to want to pay us anyway. So we'll tell you the whole secret to the farm. You're just not going to want the whole farm. That's for sure.
And as a business owner, you have to understand what you're good at. There's some things that you just have to put on someone else so that you can. I try to get rid of everything. My focus is bringing in revenue, bringing in new clients, educating more clients so that they can call the office and become clients. And that's my only focus. There's no way that I'm going to sit behind a computer and prepare a profit and loss. It makes no sense. I mean, I could use my time to increase the business, not to, do things that anyone else can do. And we have to change that mindset where we think we can do it all. You can't do it all. And you're not the only one that knows how to do it. So find someone, train them properly.
I'm mad at myself. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but I love what you're saying, and I'm mad at myself. I can't remember the principle or whatever they named it, but there's this belief system out there, and that's 100% accurate, and that is that you're spending 80% of a business's time is spent on tasks that generate less than 20% of the revenue that business is making, and then the inverse is also true, that there's 20% of tasks that generate the 80%, and it's like, as a CEO or a founder or whatever you call yourself, that's what you should be focusing on, is moving the needle. And that is whatever is generating the majority of your income, get on it and do that shit until you can't do anything else. But that's the only thing you should do. If any object within your company, any service, any product, anything that you have to do requires your time and doesn't make you money, then you say, no, I'm going to pay someone to do that. Whether it's someone who's going to manage your accounting, someone who's going to manage your marketing, someone who's going to manage the front end of the house, whatever it is, you just focus on making yourself more money.
I had a consultation with someone in December of last year, and she was so proud that she was spending 20 hours a week on her bookkeeping. So really, I did the math, because accountants, numbers don't lie. So I did the math. 20 hours a week times 52 equals 43 days that you're spending, 43 days spending doing accounting. Now, when I asked her, how much business can you bring in if you had an additional 43 days? How much time can you spend with your family and with your kids and the family if you had an additional 43 days? How many vacations can you go and spend time with your family within those 43 days? And a bulb went off. She's like, you know what, you're right. And she became a client. But these are the type of situations that I don't do my own bookkeeping. How about that? There's no point. I can have someone else do it.
Yeah.
I need to focus on building the business and increasing revenue. That's my only focus.
Absolutely. Man, every single episode, those are the kind of things that we get to. And I love that you brought that up. It's such good information. I hope everybody goes and follows you. It's been a great conversation, man. Thank you for being on the show, David. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it, man. Keep up the good work, man. You're doing an awesome job.
Absolutely. Listeners, I hope you enjoyed that conversation. There's always so much to unpack in every single one of these episodes when we have an awesome business owner like this that's just doing something incredibly different than other accountants may come and, kind of come to this business and just want to take your money, prepare that tax thing for you, and that's it. We're looking for entrepreneurs like David who want to educate you and make you experienced and educated in what you're doing so that you can make better decisions for yourself. So if you're not following David, please head out there to the show notes, check out everything that's in there. Check out his guest profile, www.smallbusinessorigin.com. It's attached to this episode. You can see how to get in touch with him, how to follow him, and most importantly, if you want to become a client, become a client. If not, we just appreciate you tuning in. We couldn't do this thing without you. But that's it for us. It's been another week, another episode. We'll see you on the next one. And as always, stay beefy, my friends.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Small Business Origins.
I love an origin story.
If you like what you just heard, leave us a review, subscribe, and share with a friend.
You guys, check this out.
They're going to love it. You're going to love it.